how do we define true basketball greatness? Is it dominating the game and earning many trophies and accolades in the process? Is it playing longer than anyone else and breaking records along the way? Or approaching the game so differently that you changed how it's played for the next decade? We look at these legends and we see greatness written in stone. We see triumph, dominance, and inevitability. But what happens when your path to greatness isn't paved with gold, but with doubt? What if instead of being called a king or a goat, your legacy is defined by the names people call you when you fail? What if your inevitability is to retire ringless? This isn't a story of domination, dynasty, or even overwhelming talent. This is a story of passion, hard work, and loyalty. A 13-year journey of failure, criticism, and reinvention that led to redemption, cemented legacy, and a little bit of revenge. It's about what happens when you refuse to accept the world's judgment of who you are. This is the story of Dirk Nowitzki. And until 2011, coming up short felt like his only story. Growing up in Würzburg, Germany, Dirk Nowitzki wasn't focused on basketball. He was a natural athlete playing his father's sport, handball, and was even a regionally ranked tennis player. He was a pretty good tennis player, but basketball was in his blood. His mother Helga had been a professional player, and his sister Silke played as well. And it didn't take long before he found himself gravitating toward the game. Both his sister and mother played. He found himself stealing time on the court his parents made for his sister, spending hours just shooting at the rim by himself. And just like that, he was hooked. He dropped the other sports, signed up for a local club, and never looked back. At 16, he met Holger Geschwindner, a former Olympic basketball player who became not only his mentor for life, but the catalyst for his entire NBA career. Now, Holger was a bit of an eccentric with a very different approach to basketball. While American prospects were running drills and lifting weights, Holger had Dirk fencing to improve footwork, dribbling to jazz rhythms to learn improvisation, and rowing to build core strength. It's pretty crazy when you think about it, but it led Dirk to develop a unique skill set that was very different among other big men. And he started dominating German basketball, playing way above his peers. But dominating in Germany is one thing. But could he do it against the best in the world? Well, in March 1998, Holger decided it was time to find out. Dirk was supposed to play in a local promotion match in Germany, but instead, Holger took him to the Nike Hoop Summit in San Antonio. He was pitted against the best high school players in America, future NBA prospects like Al Harrington and Rashard Lewis. And as it turned out, it was the defining moment for Dirk's early career. Because in that game, Dirk recorded 33 points, 3 steals, and 14 rebounds. It was a phenomenal performance, to say the least. The Dallas Mavericks were so impressed that on draft night, they made sure to get him, and even orchestrated a trade that landed both him and Steve Nash on the same night. Nobody knew it yet, but these two outsiders would become the foundation of everything Dallas was about to build. But for Dirk, the hype from San Antonio didn't translate to Dallas. At least, not at first. Dirk's rookie year was a struggle, to say the least. He averaged around 8 points a game, struggling defensively and getting pushed around like he was nothing. He was labeled soft, a tall guy who could shoot, but couldn't defend to save his life. For a young man thousands of miles from home and barely speaking the language, the psychological toll was immense. He was so frustrated that he seriously contemplated packing his bags and returning to Europe. And you know what? He might have quit if not for a small guard who got traded to Dallas on the same night Dirk got drafted. Like Dirk, Steve Nash was also a foreigner, a Canadian who'd spent 2 years in Phoenix and was already well adjusted. Nash became a crucial support system, helping him navigate the culture, the nuances of NBA life, locker room dynamics, and even the slang so he could communicate well with his teammates. By his sophomore year, everything clicked. Dirk more than doubled his scoring average to 17.5 points a game, while actually improving his efficiency. His partnership with Nash was looking extremely promising, and along with Michael Finley, they were transforming into a legitimate playoff contender. On top of that, Mark Cuban's purchase of the team in 2000 accelerated everything. Suddenly, they had the best facilities, the best support system, and a culture built around winning. And by 2001, they secured a playoff spot as the 5th seed and eliminated Karl Malone's Utah in the first round. That same season, Dirk became one of only 2 players with 153 pointers and 100 blocks in a single season. They lost to the Spurs in the next round, but it was a strong showing for their first playoff appearance. The following year, they reached the second round again before falling to Sacramento. But Dirk was becoming a nightmare for opposing coaches. Scouting reports noted that defenders his own size couldn't keep up with him on the perimeter, while smaller defenders were simply helpless against his height. Then, in 2003, they finally broke through to the conference finals, earning a date with Tim Duncan's San Antonio Spurs. But in Game 3, with the series tied 1 apiece, Dirk collided with Manu Ginobili and injured his knee. He had to sit out the remainder of the series, and Dallas lost 4 games to 2. I can't speak for Nowitzki, but it must have been agonizing, watching the season slip away, powerless to stop it. But even in defeat, there was a silver lining. Because at this point, they had evolved into a perennial contender. And statistically speaking, if this same 60-win roster could remain healthy, it was only a matter of time before they claimed that championship ring. But unfortunately, the league isn't that simple. Because instead of a ring, Dirk was about to inherit a label that felt like a cruel reward for all his hard work. After reaching the conference finals in 2003, the Mavericks thought they were just 1 or 2 pieces away from a championship. So that summer, they acquired Walker and Jamison, hoping to build an offensive juggernaut that could finally claim the ring. On paper, it looked like the depth they needed. In reality, the pieces just didn't fit, because the defense suffered along with the team's chemistry. As a result, they were bounced in the first round by the Sacramento Kings in a lopsided series. It was clear that changes were needed, but the biggest change was perhaps one he never wanted to see. That summer, Steve Nash entered free agency and received a 5-year, $65 million offer from the Phoenix Suns. From Mark Cuban's perspective, it was a significant commitment to a 30-year-old point guard. So he decided Nash wasn't worth the money, citing medical concerns about Nash's back, his age, and doubts about whether he could stay effective through the entire 5-year contract. Naturally, Nash felt undervalued, so he took the deal and went to Phoenix. And spoiler alert, Nash went on to win back-to-back MVPs, turning Phoenix into a playoffs contender. But for Dirk, the news was probably crushing. He wasn't just losing a teammate. He was losing a friend who had been with him through the trenches since day one. Suddenly, he had to become the team's cornerstone. And suddenly, he was the undeniable face of the franchise, which meant he would get most of the credit when winning, and all the blame when losing. With Nash gone, some critics expected Dallas to sink. After all, Nash had been the engine of their offense, and the one who made everyone better. But instead, Dirk stepped up, averaging career-high numbers and embracing his role as the franchise cornerstone. And Dallas finished the 2004 to 2005 season as the 4th seed in a loaded Western Conference. Everything seemed to be going according to plan. Well, until they ran into a ghost from their past. They were stopped by the very man they traded away, as Nash and the Phoenix Suns dismantled them in 6 games in the second round. At the time, it felt like poetic justice for Cuban's mistake. But for Dirk, it was another heartbreak. Another failed run despite his best efforts. But there was something relentless about Dirk's approach to the game. Beneath that humble exterior was a fierce competitor who simply refused to stay down. And the very next year, he carried his team back to the playoffs with a vengeance. First, he led Dallas into a grueling 7-game war against the Spurs. In the dying seconds of Game 7, with Dallas trailing by 3, the season was on the line. Dirk drove through contact, scored, and completed the 3-point play to force overtime, and ultimately won them the series. The same player who'd been called soft had just gone into the teeth of Duncan's team and won. Then, in the conference finals, he got his rematch against Phoenix. And this time, Dirk was the one doing the dismantling. He dropped 50 points and 12 rebounds in a pivotal Game 5, and sent Nash's team packing in Game 6. For the first time in franchise history, the Mavericks were heading to the NBA Finals. And through the first 2 games, they looked like they were going to win it all. Games 1 and 2 were everything Dallas fans had dreamed of. They dominated the Heat at home, winning both games by double digits. The confidence was so high that the Dallas Morning News reportedly began planning the championship parade route. And in Game 3, they were up by 13 points with just 6 minutes left in the fourth quarter. That one step to the championship ring was right there. They could practically touch it. But then, the Heat mounted an incredible 18-4 run that not only brought them back into the game, but gave them the lead with less than a minute remaining. Still, Dirk had a chance to save them. With seconds on the clock, he went to the line with a chance to tie the game. Now, you have to understand that Dirk is an elite free throw shooter. He averaged 90% during that season, and that night he was already 9 for 10. But then, he missed the second free throw, and ultimately that missed point cost them the game. From then on, everything fell apart. Games 4, 5, and 6 followed the same script. Wade being aggressive, getting to the free throw line, while Dallas seemed to shrink in the biggest moments. Miami won 4 straight games to steal the championship, and the narrative was devastating. Wade was the hero who willed his team to victory, while Dirk was the passive star who faded when it mattered most. Wade even publicly criticized Dirk's ability to lead in crunch time. And from then on, the critics didn't just whisper anymore. The narrative was that Dirk Nowitzki was a big choker, a soft European who shrunk in the big moments, a guy who could get you close but could never close the deal. But if 2006 was painful, what happened next was somehow worse. Fueled by the embarrassment of the finals collapse, Dirk and the Mavericks came back on a mission. And they absolutely scorched the league. They won 67 games, the best record in the NBA and one of the greatest regular seasons in franchise history. Dirk in particular was phenomenal that season, becoming the first European to win MVP while joining the exclusive 50-40-90 club. For context, that's shooting 50% from the field, 40% from 3, and 90% from the free throw line in a single season. Something very few in NBA history have accomplished, like Stephen Curry or Larry Bird. It's fair to say that at this point, they were the overwhelming favorites to finally break through and win it all. And in the first round, the number 1 seeded Mavericks were matched up against the 8th seeded Golden State Warriors. Now, yes, this looked like a mismatch on paper, because the Warriors barely won over 50% of their games that year. And they even almost missed the playoffs if not for winning 16 of their final 21 games. But unfortunately, the standings didn't tell the whole story. In fact, it was probably the worst possible matchup Dallas could have drawn. You see, during the regular season, the Mavericks hadn't beaten the Warriors a single time, And one of the biggest reasons was that Don Nelson, Dirk's former head coach, was now coaching Golden State. He knew Dirk's weaknesses and tendencies, and he exploited them ruthlessly. And what followed was arguably the worst playoff performance of Dirk's entire career. In Game 1, he shot an abysmal 25% from the field. And in the elimination Game 6, it got even worse as he shot just 2 for 13. A humiliating 15% from the field. And as you might already know, the Warriors dismantled them 4-2 in that series. In the entire history of the NBA, very few 8th seeds have ever managed to topple a number 1 seed in a 7-game series. In other words, it was a collapse of historic proportions. And to top it all off, because MVP awards are voted on before the playoffs begin, Dirk had to accept his trophy a week after they got eliminated. What should have been the greatest individual honor in basketball became a reminder of his greatest team failure. And if 2006 created the choker narrative, 2007 probably cemented it. Heck, some people even called him a one-trick pony, despite him having an elite mid-range and three-point game as a power forward. I guess it's true then. You can do 1,000 things right, but the world only remembers the one thing you did wrong. And he would not shake that label for a very, very long time. For the next few years, the Mavericks were stuck in a weird purgatory. They consistently clinched the playoffs and won 50-plus games like clockwork. But, like clockwork, they were consistently getting outplayed in the postseason. And year after year, it was the same story. In 2008, they got bounced in the first round by Chris Paul and the Hornets. In 2009, they lost in the second round to Carmelo Anthony's Nuggets. And in 2010, they were bounced in the first round again by the Spurs. With those consistent failures, most people were probably counting them out. And outside of Dallas, the basketball world was moving on. They were slowly fading into obscurity. But here's what you probably didn't see. Over the years, the Mavericks were quietly building the pieces around Dirk. Back in 2004, they brought in Jason Terry, a fearless shooting guard who became Dirk's most reliable scoring partner. He thrived in clutch moments and brought infectious confidence to the team, the perfect complement to Dirk's quiet leadership. 2 years later, they took a chance on an undrafted kid from Puerto Rico named J.J. Barea. Now, at 5'10", he had no business being in the NBA. But he clawed his way into the league, and his speed and scrappiness made him the perfect spark plug when Dallas needed momentum. Then in 2008, they traded for Jason Kidd, an all-time great point guard who was 35 years old and clearly past his athletic prime. But what he lacked in speed, he made up for with pure basketball IQ and championship experience. And finally, they addressed their biggest weakness: defense. In 2009, they brought in Shawn Marion, a versatile forward who could guard multiple positions. And in 2010, they acquired Tyson Chandler, who became their elite rim protector. Together, they provided the toughness and defensive foundation Dallas had been missing. They now had the depth and the chemistry, but at the same time, their roster wasn't exactly young. Dirk, in particular, felt the age catching up to him. Now, he'd never been the fastest, but he'd always had just enough speed to drive past defenders closing out on his shot. And as he felt that first step slipping away, he knew he had to adapt. He needed a way to create space without relying on athleticism. So he honed a move that would become his trademark: the one-legged fadeaway. It was a pretty awkward-looking shot, but combined with his 7-foot frame and high release point, it became one of the most unguardable shots in NBA history, arguably right up there with Kareem's skyhook. And just like that, it became Dirk's signature move. It was reliable and hard to defend, and above all, devastatingly effective. So there it was. They had the depth, they had the defense, and they had the weapon. After years of building, it felt like this version of the Mavs was stronger than they had been in a long time. But just as the window seemed to open, the entire landscape of the NBA shifted overnight.
And this fall, I'm going to take my talents to South Beach and join the Miami Heat.
In the summer of 2010, LeBron James joined the Miami Heat with two other superstar players. You had LeBron James, Chris Bosh, and Dwayne Wade, three legitimate superstars joining forces on one team. Naturally, the media was obsessed, instantly crowning them the ultimate super team. And honestly, winning the championship felt inevitable with a roster like that. But while the Miami Heat were soaking up all the headlines, the Mavericks were quietly grinding their way to 57 wins, earning the third seed in a loaded Western Conference. But the thing is, most people didn't really expect them to win the championship. After all, they hadn't even come close to winning since that 2006 finals collapse. They had a bit of a reputation as a really good regular season team that just couldn't get it done in the playoffs, but this year? Well, the first test came immediately. In round one, the Mavericks opened up with a commanding 2-0 lead, defending home court with ease. Portland managed to take Game 3, but in Game 4, the Mavs led by as many as 23 points late in the third and entered the fourth up by 18. It was looking like a guaranteed blowout win to take a commanding 3-1 lead. But then, Brandon Roy happened. Playing on deteriorating knees, Roy put on a miraculous performance, scoring 18 of his 24 points in that final quarter alone. The Blazers outscored the Mavs 35-15 in the fourth, tying the series at 2-2 and seizing all the momentum with one of the greatest comebacks in playoff history. And honestly, it looked like the same old story was playing out. It looked like Dirk and the Mavs were collapsing just like before, unable to adjust, waiting to get eliminated. But this wasn't the 2006 or 2007 Mavericks anymore. Instead of folding, Dirk and the team responded with vengeance. Dirk dropped 25 points in Game 5 to regain the lead, then 33 in Game 6 to officially send the Blazers packing. Now, sure, avoiding a choke against a lower seed is one thing, but how would they fare against the defending champions? And a player who is an absolute monster come playoff time. In the second round, Dirk and the Mavs faced the two-time defending champion, the Los Angeles Lakers. Kobe Bryant was chasing his second three-peat, and Phil Jackson was hunting for his 12th ring as a coach. On paper, the Lakers were overwhelming favorites. In fact, when ESPN polled their experts before the series, almost every single one picked the Lakers, and why wouldn't they? The Lakers were a battle-tested dynasty going up against a team with a reputation for choking in big moments. And looking back, it's fair to say that nobody, and I mean nobody, saw the massacre coming. In Game 1, the Lakers dominated early, building a massive 16-point lead in the third quarter. But the mental toughness and tenacity of this 2011 squad was on another level. They remained completely unfazed and chipped away at that lead, one possession at a time. And by the fourth quarter, they had turned a blowout into a war. Dirk scored 11 in the final quarter, while the team played unselfish basketball on offense and aggressive defense to seal the comeback. It came down to the final seconds, but Dallas managed to steal Game 1 in LA, and from there, they never looked back. In Game 2, the defense was suffocating, holding the Lakers to just 81 points to take a commanding 2-0 lead. In Game 3, the Lakers tried to save their season, holding a 7-point lead with 5 minutes left. But the Mavs just took over as they went on an 18-6 run to close the game and steal the win. And in Game 4, in what became known as the Mother's Day Massacre, Jason Terry went unconscious, tying a playoff record by draining 9 three-pointers. But that's just half the story. As a team, Dallas rained down 23s and ended the game with a staggering 36-point victory. In just 4 games, the Mavs effectively ended the Lakers dynasty. And for the first time in his legendary 20-year coaching career, Phil Jackson was swept, sending the dynasty into retirement. In the Western Conference Finals, the Mavs went head-to-head with the Oklahoma City Thunder. They were a young team at the time, but looking back, the talent on that roster was absolutely mind-blowing. You had Kevin Durant, a generational scorer, Russell Westbrook, a future triple-double machine, and James Harden, the future face of the Houston Rockets. Think about that for a second. 3 future MVPs, all on the same team. And standing in their way was a 32-year-old German leading a roster of aging veterans. But in Game 1, Dirk dropped 48 points on just 15 field goal attempts. He shot 80% from the field and went a perfect 24 for 24 from the free throw line. Every time they gave him space, he buried it. And every time they fouled him, he made every single free throw count. And just like that, Dallas took Game 1. Sure, OKC might have been faster, younger, and more athletic, but they had absolutely no answer for Dirk. Game 2 was different, though. Led by a young James Harden, the Thunder bench completely overwhelmed Dallas, outscoring them 50-29. It made all the difference, allowing OKC to steal a win on Dallas's home court. And for a moment, it looked like this might actually be a fight. But here's the thing. That was the last game Oklahoma City would win all series. The Mavs closed it out in the next 3 games, and while the scores were pretty close, Dirk simply wouldn't let his team lose. Game 4 was the perfect example. Oklahoma City had a 15-point lead with just 5 minutes remaining in the fourth quarter. In fact, Dallas hadn't led the entire game. But then, Nowitzki took over and scored 12 points in those final 5 minutes, sparking a furious 17-2 run that forced overtime and led to a stunning victory. For the series, Nowitzki averaged 32.2 points per game on 55.7% shooting as they took out OKC 4-1. And for the first time since 2006, the Dallas Mavericks were heading back to the NBA Finals. And just like 2006, he would be facing the same team. Only this time, they had become a super team. After surviving Portland's upset bid and dismantling both the defending champion Lakers and a Thunder team with 3 future MVPs, Dallas had arrived at the finals. Against all odds, they were here, facing the team that sparked the narrative that had haunted him for years, the Miami Heat. But looking back, this went far deeper than a simple rematch. It was a clash of 2 completely different philosophies. Dallas embodied years of grind, a team built on failure, loyalty, and perseverance. On the other hand, the Heat were a collection of superstars, assembled over one summer. And in a lot of ways, it felt like instant gratification, like the opposite of everything Dallas represented. Vegas made Miami heavy favorites, and looking at that Heat roster, who could blame them? Now he had 2 superstars on his team, both in their prime, and one of them was considered the best player in the world. And let's just say, they knew exactly how good they were. Heck, they were even talking about multiple championships.
Not 1, championships.
Not 2.
LeBron, tell us about that.
Not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, not 6, not 7.
And early on, the series went exactly as most people expected. In Game 1, the Mavs put up a pretty good fight, but it just wasn't enough. Miami's Big 3 lived up to the hype, contributing 65 points combined. Wade, in particular, put on a phenomenal performance on both ends in the second half. As a result, Miami took the opener comfortably, 92-84. But to make matters worse, Dirk tore a tendon in his left middle finger in the final minutes. Now, sure, it wasn't his shooting hand, but that injury was going to affect everything else. So when Game 2 came, it looked like the nightmare was just continuing. For almost the whole game, the Heat were in total control. And with just over 7 minutes left, Following a dagger 3 from Wade, they were up by 15. They had just reeled off a blistering 13-0 run. And honestly, it looked like the game was over. But if there was one word to describe this year's Mavs, it was composure. They just stayed calm, played tough defense, and made shots of their own. And before you knew it, they were on a 17-2 run, erasing the deficit in the blink of an eye. With 30 seconds remaining, Dirk buried a 3 to finally give them the lead. But LeBron immediately found Chalmers for a quick answer to tie it back up. At this point, it came down to one question. Who had the better clutch gene? And the answer? Well, in those final minutes, Dirk Nowitzki scored the Mavs' last 9 points, stealing Game 2 right out from under them. And not only did the Mavs overcome a 15-point deficit, they ended Miami's perfect 9-0 home playoff streak. The series shifted to Dallas for Game 3, and the energy in the building was electric. After that incredible Game 2 comeback, it felt like the momentum had completely shifted. But Game 3 turned into a completely different kind of battle, a grinding, physical war. Neither team could pull away. Every possession mattered, and every bucket was earned. Individually, Dirk was spectacular. He was attacking the rim, hitting his fadeaway, and doing everything he could to will Dallas to victory. But despite his 34 points, the game went down to the wire. And with the game on the line, trailing 88-86, Dirk pulled the trigger on the last shot. It wasn't the perfect look, but let's be honest, a tough shot for Dirk is still a pretty high percentage shot. But unfortunately this time, it didn't fall. They were so close, but it just wasn't enough. And just like that, all the momentum from Game 2 felt like it had evaporated. Now they were down 2-1, staring down the barrel of a 3-1 deficit if they couldn't save their season in Game 4. Historically, coming back from a 3-1 deficit in the finals is almost impossible. So Game 4 was pretty much a must-win situation for the Mavs. But when Dirk woke up that morning, he was facing a different kind of battle. He was burning up with a 100-plus degree fever, and for most of the game, you could see the illness taking its toll. If there was ever a game where Dallas needed the team to step up, this was it. And you know what? The team delivered. While Dirk fought to find his legs, guys like Jason Terry, Sean Marion, Deshaun Stevenson, and Tyson Chandler carried the load. And then, when it mattered most, when the game was on the line, somehow Dirk dug deep and delivered the clutch moment Dallas needed. With 14 seconds left, clinging to a 1-point lead, he drove right past his defender and laid it in. It was the perfect example of championship basketball. Teammates carrying the load when needed, and a superstar rising up in crunch time no matter the circumstances. Despite the illness, Dirk finished with 21 points, and 10 of them came in the fourth quarter alone. And just to put that into perspective, on the other side, LeBron James, touted as the best player in the world, finished with just 8 points for the entire game. Now, sure, people always talk about Jordan's flu game, and maybe this wasn't quite on that level, but it was heroic, and for this city, it meant just as much. The series was now tied 2-2, and Dallas had kept the dream alive. But if people weren't already rooting for the underdog Mavs, what happened next would give them every reason to.
Think I'm sick.
LeBron and Wade were fake coughing in front of the cameras. Now, you might hate LeBron's move to Miami, but you can't blame a guy for wanting to win championships. But this just looked disrespectful. Here were two of the biggest names in the sport, openly mocking an opponent who'd shown incredible heart and determination. But if they were trying to get inside Dirk's head, it backfired. And it backfired really badly. Okay, maybe that's a slight overstatement. Game 5 was actually pretty close until the final few minutes, but you could feel the extra motivation when the game tipped off in front of that Dallas crowd. And you just know that the team wasn't going to let the disrespect go unanswered. Dirk led everyone in scoring, even while battling constant double teams. But make no mistake, this was a total team effort. They shot the lights out, hitting 13 of 19 from deep, including some absolutely ridiculous shots from Jason Terry and J.J. Barea. Meanwhile, Chandler was making heroic defensive plays, and Jason Kidd was providing superb defense while hitting timely threes of his own. And by the end of it, the Mavs won 112-103, taking a 3-2 series lead. The super team wasn't just losing anymore. They were one game away from elimination. In Game 6, the Heat looked ready to force a Game 7. Early on, LeBron started hot. He hit his first 4 shots, quickly putting up 9 points and sparking a 12-1 run for Miami. Dirk, on the other hand, was struggling badly. He started the game shooting a nightmare 1 for 12 from the field. Heck, even wide-open shots just wouldn't fall for him. But if you don't know the drill by now, this Mavs team got Dirk's back. Jason Terry stepped up and carried the Mavs through the first half, along with Deshaun Stevenson's 9 points from 3. And then the second half came, and Dirk flipped the switch. He recorded 18 of his 21 points in the second half, including 10 in the fourth quarter alone. The whole team was contributing. The defense was suffocating, and the ball movement was crisp, and it wasn't even that competitive anymore in the last 2 minutes of the game. So when that final buzzer sounded, the result was undeniable. You could argue that the Miami Heat was the more talented team, but without a doubt, Dallas was the better team. And for the first time in the history of the Dallas Mavericks franchise, they were NBA champions. For Dirk, this was the moment 13 years in the making. Proof that loyalty matters and that persistence pays off. That the traits they called weaknesses could become your greatest strengths. For years, the critics called him soft and a choker who couldn't win the big one. He had the chance to leave and chase a ring, but he didn't. He stayed right there with the Mavs, and in return, his teammates had his back. That night, that quiet German kid, who kept believing even when no one else did, didn't just take down a super team. He completed one of the hardest roads to a title in NBA history. You know, sometimes it feels like the world has already decided how your story ends, that you're too old, too slow, or too soft to matter anymore. But sometimes, the best chapters belong to those who just keep turning the page, because the ending was never up to them anyway.